I left home early to find the new building my company graciously leased after the collapse of their last building. It wasn't easy to find. For some reason, a big brown building with nothing of our company name, ASAP Incorporated, inscribed anywhere on the outside rendered it very difficult to spot, especially with all those encompassing trees blocking my view. Because of that, I was 10 minutes late, and when you know it, the company was going to hold me responsible for that. We always had to punch our time cards in the break room. Several of my coworkers congregated and exchanged stories about their tornado experiences. I noticed a person was waiting for the next minute on the time clock to roll over. She asked me if I needed to use the time clock, and I pretty much announced I was late. Let me tell you, as soon as your card swipes through that slot, you know that your freedom is over for 8 hours. I'd never been to prison, but I knew what it felt like. Typically, my blood pressure was very high, and I blamed this place for it. Hypnotic waves of stress flowed and joined together at the pit of my stomach. Somehow, my arms bore down as if my shoulders were weights. I knew that once I opened that door to the pharmacy, my interpretation of hell will rear its ugly head. There was a warehouse that separated between the break room and the pharmacy. This would buy me at least 30 seconds to a minute of breathing time, depending on how fast I felt like walking. There was only one person there, J.R. Thomas, who was busy trying to ignore me and check on the orders from an outside warehouse. Hi, best friend J.R., I would say to him. And his typical response would be, shut up. Then it was the door to the pharmacy. I took in a breath and plunged in like a brave soldier storming the beaches of Omaha. Luckily for me, it was quiet. However, like any day at the job, the first couple hours were always quiet, and then a drastic turn will take place. Debbie was finishing up at ASAP when I arrived. We delivered to nursing homes, and a lot of times they would call the pharmacy to ASAP their drugs out to them. We would fill them onto this tray with a sheet on it with numbers depicting the orders. A lot of times it would be controlled substances that we had to get from an area called the cage where some of the most belligerent of staffs would work. Seriously, every time the wrong person goes in there, they would scream like banshees and try to rip your skin off. It's awful. Then other times they would rush out the most inane drugs like cough syrup. Some of these homes abuse the ASAP policy, and we just allow them because we like to suck dicks for business. I always imagine a representative of our company being called up on one of our homes. Nurse at the home saying, I'm still waiting on my 7 pills of aspirin chewables. Why aren't you people over there taking it seriously? I'm terminating your business. Then I see the representative saying, I'm so sorry. Is there any way we can make it up to you? Yes, you can start by coming over and kissing both cheeks of my ass. I'll be waiting with my skirt down. Yes, ma'am. Are there any dicks you wish of me to suck? You know we specialize in that. Yeah. Our boss isn't getting head from his wife. You can suck him under the table. Debbie handed off the ASAPs to me with some not even filled because she refused to fill them once she saw me. She had pulled from the bosses for some reason, which is why I couldn't fight it. All she needed was to bitch and complain, and they were right there by her side. It happened more than once, meaning that she was a feisty black woman helped in their cause too. A lot of our upper management people were predominantly white, and when it came to taking sides between a white or black person, they always bet on black. The fear of the race card frightened them. They were paid too well to risk their jobs. That was the start of my day. I was just about to go and fill an ASAP when Casey came out with her hands on her hips. Immediately I knew what it was about. Our stupid boss had this print schedule where in specific time we would have to print all the labels to fill the drugs. As precious as ASAPs were to them, almost to the point of giving them an anxiety attack if not filled in a timely manner, I'm surprised his job was given to the ASAP guy. What time is it? She asked. Casey just turned 21 this year. She was very petite, an attractive girl with long brown hair and a very young, dimply face. In fact, one of the pharmacists who used to work there wanted her to pose for some Detroit ad he was making. I don't know what came of it. He moved to Florida. I responded, Oh, I just got here and I just got this ASAP. She interrupted, I don't care. See this face? This is me not caring. Print those labels. I forgot to mention she had an attitude 90% of the time. As she walked off, I shouted, No problem, Casey. I'm right on it. She walked up to my table and told me, I'm going to take a quick smoke. I just approved and she walked off. A lot of people complain about Tammy taking a lot of breaks. What they should be complaining about was how the big bosses just let her get away with it. Some speculate that because she reports everyone to them, changes her schedule to accommodate them whenever they lose a person, and helps with their scheduling, sometimes which she lived by. And then they were afraid to say something because she was an intricate part of how they operate. The first couple hours were great. It wasn't too busy, and I was able to laugh and joke with my crew. After that second hour, though, was when the shit started pouring in. We got these ASAPs called new admits. I hate new admits. Basically, it means there is a new patient at the home and we immediately need to send out at least 20 or 30 different medications for one person. I always said if I ever need that many meds, please shoot me in the head. Not only were there new admits, but there was one after another. Did everyone decide to take Grandma to nursing home today? Like, did they say to Grandma, "Hey Grandma, guess where you're going today?" "That's right, you're going to the nursing home. I know you took care of me for most of my life and I really appreciate it. It's just that, well, you're old. And I have a family now, and quite frankly, you're starting to become a burden, and the wife and I are tired of taking care of you. Now don't you worry, we'll come to visit you at the nursing home and you're sure as shit see us around the holidays. Maybe we can order you some pills to go in your stuffing." I dropped a tub of blisters, cooler bags, and over-the-counter medications all clumped together onto the pharmacist's table. Cornelius looked at it like he didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to fill it. It was his people who started it in the first place. I looked over at my own table and saw three trays of endless labels just waiting for me to fill. To add insult to injury, another ASAP sheet rolled off the fax machine. I didn't even want to look at it. Before I even touched them, the phone rang. We had a phone next to the computer in case any delivery driver calls or some numbnuts up front had a question they can usually figure out themselves. I answered the phone angrily and shouted, "What?" Some female voice on the other end, "Oh, hell no, you ain't talking that way to me." It was a girl I frequently took out on dates named Deshauna. She was one of our drivers. Oops. Now, I never actually slept with Deshauna. We would go out and I would treat her to a trip to a movie theater or buy her a drink. Mostly we'd chug on drinks. We did a lot of drinking. She never liked me drinking that cheap shit. Whenever I go buy a bottle of vodka for a mere $5, she would always stop me and show me the $60 alcohol bottles. My wallet said no. Unfortunately, I felt it was a special occasion anyway, so I bought it. It just gave me a splitting headache. Suddenly she just got so drunk and jumped all over me. Now don't get me wrong, she was a beautiful girl. Her body wasn't bad either. Compared to most of the women I slept with, she had a nice firm silky body with a curve that went down her butt so she can grind really smooth. Her butt cheeks were like soft coconut bottoms. I noticed because I saw them. She ripped off her clothes like a desperate housewife to a mailman, and her blackish brown nipples sparkled in the moonlight. It was all I had to see as I was laid flat on my bed. Then as she grinded on my software, I noticed she was getting off. I wasn't feeling it going in, but she continued to make noises like this was being filmed for porn. As she got more aggressive, bouncing her butt cheeks on my legs like a bouncing anvil, I noticed my nards were flopping like bunny ears. I started to panic. The splitting headache just overtook the situation and forced me not to pay attention on getting a hard on, but rather the immense pain throbbing in my head. I won at the moment, however. Circumstances had befallen on me. Afterwards, I could feel the disappointment in her as she was sighing. I just kept complaining about my headache, which later I found was a no-no after sex. Well, I was just being honest. Then she had to leave when originally she was going to spend the night. She made up some excuse about seeing her kid, proceeded to look and put on her clothes. I fell for the excuse and she left without a goodbye kiss. And here we are. I started to work my charm and approached her. She backed off a little when I said, "Hey, Deshauna, I was wondering when we were going drinking again." "You crazy. I'm serious. I was thinking we can meet up across the street from my place and have a few drinks, maybe more." "You just want me to get in bed with you." "No, you're like my drinky buddy. Lord knows I don't have any of those. Look, last time that expensive stuff just gave me a headache, so if you let me drink that cheap shit, you aren't drinking that cheap shit. Hear me out. If you let me..." "No, I'm not letting you. Fine, we go out drinking. If you go in the bedroom this time, we won't. We won't." I had worked the charm. Just then, an older blonde woman named Lisa walked in. She came in from the sliding door that you normally need a badge to get in. Today she was wearing her red work shirt and her hair hung back behind her neck. Now she was a little chunky, but a little meat wasn't a bad thing. Hi, Tyler, she gave off this large smile. I couldn't tell if it was fake or inviting, but she pulled it off well. Lisa, I decided to work my charm. Hey, are you looking hot and red today? This is what I wear every day when I come here. Yeah, it suits you. It makes you look, how should I put it? Then Tachana shouted out, he's just trying to make me jealous, and it's not working. But you're thinking I'm making you jealous, which means there is something there. Then Francisco popped in out of nowhere and said, Hi, Tyler. Francisco was an older Mexican who had a football player body. He was bulky but meaty, with a face that always smiled, but not in a gentle way, but more of a sneaky way, like he had a joke he just couldn't say. He was an easy man to get along with, and Tyler admired his sense of humor. I said to Francisco, Go away, Francisco. Tyler's over here trying to make me jealous, said Deshauna, and it's working, because me and Lisa are going on a date. I just had my arm around her with that fake proud smile on my face when Francisco said, Oh, you met my wife? Where are you two going? Can I come? This is your wife? Suddenly I felt very uncomfortable having my arm around her with her husband right there. Then his wife said, with my arm still wrapped around her, Looks like you're in trouble now, Tyler. I let go and made haste to the door. I heard Deshauna say, Yeah, go get my ASAPs. I swung that door open like I was king of the pharmacy. I just looked onward at the pharmacy like the cool guy that I was and marveled at everything like it was my homeland. True, it was just me playing a part for the sake of being bored, but that's why the women love me. Waiting for me at my desk were the women from the carpet. They get calls from the nursing staff of our homes, mostly to bitch and complain. They all seemed to be yelling at me at once. There was like 5 of them, and they were all around me running their mouths. I couldn't make out what they were saying. I was too busy in my happy place. The happy place where I'll be living would be my luxurious new home with an arcade room, a water park in my background, and all my friends and family members were over enjoying Ramon's grilling. Sometimes mine needed a heaven. It helped to reduce stress and complications of the heart. Of course, all good happy places get interrupted by your arch nemesis like J.R. Thompson. It plopped some labels on the table and asked me a very simple question, which was, Why were these back ordered? Because we don't have any. We don't have any. There were some on the top shelf. They must have appeared there, I said almost cryptically. That's okay, smiled JR. You can explain that to Patty. It was in that moment where the people around us stopped and gasped. A silence fell to the room, and JR gave off a smug and went his merry way back to the warehouse. The stares went back at me, and I only smiled and assured. I said, Don't worry, people, relax. That mean old Patty won't be coming in. Suddenly I spoke too soon because the doors concocted a violent smash into the wall. A giant monster of a beast reared out from the shadows. She let out a roar so thunderous it sent earlobes chiming into an obnoxious buzz. Quickly she grabbed for the nearest running employee and bit off his head and chewed it like bubble gum. Her eyes looked dead at me. Those eyes, pungent with a mix of blood and fire, smeared out an invisible blade into her target, my forehead. I jumbled back but regained composure. She was lumbering over me with grunts of a giant purring cat. I watched in awe as she towered over me with a body so huge it dimmed the lights into a shadow. She roared so loud the skin off my face started to peel off. Actually, she was a normal woman, but my perception of her was just that. She was just burly blonde woman with a frown struggling to be upside down. All she did was complain why we're taking back orders, and I tuned out most of what she was yelling about because most people were used to her bitching. Patty Marie Smith was in charge of purchasing. Not many people could see it, but she had a softer side to her. Sometimes we would laugh and joke with each other, and other times we would jump down each other's throats. Half of the time we never knew what mood she was in. She loved to talk about other people. If anyone was the queen of gossiping, it was her. However, most employees were scared to see her in their office. You just never knew if it would set her off. I often look at her office like the cauldron of death. I could see the flames from the creases under the floor. Inside her office, I could see her brewing a large pot with a broom and a shrieking laughter that could scare children. She said, "You have to look. We can't keep backwarding. You have to look. I'm tired of this. I'm so sorry. It will never happen again." She could sense my caustic tone. Things were saved when I saw John walking toward me, and I kept hoping it wasn't about something I did wrong. Turned out he had 5 men in suits walking behind him with countenances so emotionless I could feel the expensive ego oozing out of them. They were middle-aged men, with the one in center having crystal white hair. He was the only one whose suit was gray, while the other 4 men styled with black. Their feet sounded like cattle as they walked, and the rhythm of their walk sang in unison. They were approaching me, but stopped behind John as if he was the mediator. All eyes directed at me, and I stood there behind that desk like a slunk child. John spoke first, trying his best to avoid questions, and said to the group, "This over here is the dash. This is where all the ASAPs come in." After getting over the shock, I realized I needed to be working, so I started punching buttons on the keyboard to my computer. I accessed anything just to give the illusion that I was working. From the corner of my eye, I caught a mustache man furrowing his chin. I knew I shouldn't have, but I raised my eye at him like a guilty man trying not to look. Then the gray man asked, "Why does he have an ASAP right now?" "I caught up with them," I blurted out, trying my best not to look intimidated. Then I backed up with, "I got them all out. I'm just waiting on the next one so I can, get that out too." Then John introduced, "Tyler, these are the representatives from the CEO. They are here to look around and see how the job is functioning." "Really? Great. I finally get to meet you guys. Listen, I hope this walkthrough you're having turns out well, and hopefully things will improve from here." "Improve?" asked the mustache man. "So you're saying we need improvements?" Then suddenly 3 of the men got comfortable at the other end of the table. The short, fatter CEO asked, "We obviously came to the right man. What kind of improvements?" "Well, for starters, we may need more people. Oftentimes the Ohio facility dumps their labels at us when they can't handle it or their robot breaks down, so it would be nice to be prepared for situations like those." Just during my speech, I did hear the fax machine roll off an ASAP sheet behind me. I was too in the moment and a little nervous to grab that sheet. A thought came over me that as soon as I touched that paper, those eyes would be staring right at me the whole time. The short guy then said, "That is very interesting. We will have to look into that." The mustache man interrupted, and he had a smirk on his face as he asked, "You going to get that ASAP paper?" His tone wasn't friendly. It was more of a test. "Oh, yeah, sorry. I was so busy talking." My soul dropped when I touched that paper. The ASAP papers already rolled in upside down, so it was a surprise if the ASAP was just one item or the dreaded 30. My dumb luck was that it was the latter. Everything felt in slow motion when I saw the new admit ASAP in front of my face. Then it got worse. John was about to direct them to another area when the mustache man said, "No, wait. I want to see this. I want to see how the ASAP process works in its entirety. You seem to know a lot about this place. Show me how you get an ASAP." I was lost like a deer caught in the headlights. Just as I feared, the 5 men darted eyes at me like I was about to take a field test. I edged over to the computer to try not to waste valuable time. My fickle fingers had to adjust the paper accordingly on the table. I logged into the ASAP file and saw that the numbers for the order was there. I had to page down to at least 3 screens to see how much was displayed. The labels rolled out like noisy toilet paper when I printed them, and to my dismay, a lot of them were partial fills. The partial fills were always the worst part of the new admit. Normally we had 30 packs situated by racks on the floor, and it was easy to just pick them up and label them. However, with the partial fills, I would have to reconfigure and hot press every single one, ranging from 7 pills to 14. That was time consuming. The mustache man boldly asked, "You need help?" "I got this." He got this. This is a very fast man on the ASAPs. Then I heard their smug laughs. There weren't enough people on the floor to help, and I doubted either of these jokers would lift a label. I had to think logically in the situation, otherwise we would never get any additional help. With the labels crumbled in a tote, I left my post to go fill it on the floor. The 5 men marched behind me with their hands folded behind their backs. I could hear their boot heels. I could hear the leather boot heels snap in the tile floor. I set the I set the tote down and began looking in the alphabetized bins for each corresponding drug. After I found the drug in small blistered pockets, I took one of the blister packs, which were like cards with fitted holes in them, and I reconfigured the drug into the 7 pills indicated on my label. The mustache man asked, "Why are you getting those drugs individually? Why not all at once?" I answered, "This is how I get the ASAP." "Okay, please continue." I didn't know what that meant, but the next endeavor was the hot press. That was where I would take a bottle and fit each pill into what they called a bubble. It had rolls of bubbled film on it that fit neatly into a blister pack. I would just run in the hot press when I noticed Debbie sorting out the labels of my tote. She must have sensed I was taking too long and decided to help me into not looking like a disgrace in front of these pompous bastards. But the mustache man said, "Don't help him." I countered with, "Sometimes my employees help me if my ASAP's too big." "You're doing just fine. Keep going." A sweat beaded from my forehead as I watched the machine we call the REM Star roll down racks of bins for all the over-the-counter drugs. I selected a row number on the circuit board, and the machine just kept rolling down with the sounds of metallic bumps and whirs. The mustache man asked, "Why is this taking so long?" I responded rather shakily, "I know it sometimes takes too long." I think he heard the crack in my voice. "It's okay," he said. "Just relax." "I'm relaxed. I've done this 1,000 times." "Really?" I couldn't tell. Finally, we got to the fridge. It's this little area where a row of refrigerators house insulin and pens. I happened to be fitting a vial with a small label flagged onto it into a small box. It was a little disconcerting, and I had to shove in the vial in order for my nervous fingers to close it. I don't think they liked that. By the time we got back to my table, I brought out my pen from my necklace to check off the list of drugs. I thought this would be the end of it when the mustache man pulled out some ASAP sheets from under the fax machine. He asked in a placid tone, "What is this? Why are these sitting here?" He slapped it on the table and asked, "How long were these sitting here?" All I could come up with was, "I don't know." "You don't know. How long did that ASAP take? 20 minutes? The gray man responded, "More like 13 minutes. 13 minutes! So in all that time, within 13 minutes, it took you to get that ASAP, these papers were just sitting here. Unacceptable. I can get to them really quick. It's not about how you get to them really quick, it's about how long they've been sitting there." He looked over at John and said, "What I just discovered here, I'm not impressed. I want him properly trained, and I want him on this dash every day. Is that understood?" John nodded and responded, "Yes, sir." "I will be back. I don't know. When do you say we'll be back?" The shorter man replied with, "We got that meeting in Kentucky. We have that fundraiser with Labaskin." "Right. We're coming back. I can't say when. I'll give it a couple months. If I witness what I've just seen here tonight, I'm going to be cleaning house. That desk of yours, John, is going to be squeaky clean when I get through with it. See to it that your employee, if he's still working here, learns the proper way in handling an ASAP." I took a couple steps before he turned to me and asked, "I'm sorry, what's your name?" I had my tongue tied. The shorter man said to him, "His badge says Tyler Moore." 5 men walked past my side of John. He was just staring me down like a disappointed father. No words were spoken, and he followed with the suits while I stood behind that table like a defeated loser. Casey walked up and slammed the ASAP down and said, "Here's your ASAP, faggot." Then, then Tammy walked up to me and said, "I'm going to take a quick break." I wanted to comment on her breaks, but I was too stricken with nerves to let out anything cohesive. I heard my cell phone beep, and I immediately grabbed for it to stop the noise. It was Megan texting me, asking if I was still going. I looked at the ASAP sheets in front of me and up at the clock, and I knew I wasn't going to get out of there on time. I responded back with, "I'm going to be a little late." Then Debbie came up to me and said with concern, "What those guys did to you was wrong, Tyler. You should report this." I answered, "It's okay. I'll get them back."